Once upon a goddamn time, Snow White's fair skin was all the rage. The chic and sexy look that had those Elizabethan English elite jerks drooling. Queen Elizabeth I, that badass queen with a ghostly touch, set the freaking standard in the 16th century. Her porcelain skin was like a stamp of nobility and heavenly perfection. But here's the sick twist, folks. To achieve that goddamn perfection, Elizabeth smeared her face with a lethal cocktail of makeup. And I ain't talking about your regular Sephora shit. No, she went all out and covered herself in lead. Yeah, you heard me right. Lead. That toxic shit that messes you up real bad. But wait, there's more. The queen didn't stop at lead. Oh no, she had to add a touch of mercury to the mix. She painted that shit on her lips and probably used a mercury-based makeup remover that ate away at her flesh like a bunch of hungry piranhas. And that, my friends, brings us to today's topic. The makeup that might have damn well killed Queen Elizabeth I herself. But before we dive into this twisted tale, don't forget to subscribe to the Living History channel. And hey, drop a comment letting us know which historical figure you want us to cover next. Now, let's get the hell on with it. The Queen is calling us. During the reign of the Virgin Queen, the epitome of female beauty was skin so blindingly white it'd make your eyes water. And how did Elizabeth achieve this look? She slathered her face with a concoction called Venetian ceruse, made from lead and vinegar. Picture this, she's patting that shit on her face and neck, transforming her pockmarked skin into a freaking eerie canvas that probably smelled like some cheap-ass wine gone bad. Talk about commitment to virginity. Am I right? But here's the part that'll make you cringe. Thanks to 400 goddamn years of scientific progress, we now know that plastering lead on your face day in and day out is a one-way ticket to disaster. It causes hair loss, skin decay, and, wait for it, death by lead poisoning. Yeah, back in the 16th century, that shit was as final as it gets. And guess what? Lead wasn't the only toxic ingredient in Elizabeth's beauty regime. Brace yourselves for the other culprit. Snow White's mama wanted more than just a creepy little ghost baby. No, she also wished for her daughter to have lips as red as blood on a freaking winter rose. And how did they achieve that vibrant shade of red? Well, they used a toxic mineral called cinnabar, which contains mercury. That's right, folks, mercury. The queen's lip stain was basically a goddamn poison that made her mouth pop in those eerie paintings of hers. So here we have it. Two horrifying poisons working together, slowly seeping into her skin over years. Now, let's talk about the aftermath. That lead face of hers started corroding her skin, so what did Elizabeth do? She piled on more and more makeup, layer upon layer to hide the damage. By the end of her life, they say she was wearing makeup an inch thick. That's some serious dedication, I tell you. But all that lead poisoning wasn't without consequences. Mercury does a number on you too, my friends. It messes with your memory, turns you into an irritable mess, and makes you sink into the pits of depression. And you guessed it, Elizabeth experienced all that shit in her final days. We're getting warmer, folks.
This video is brought to you by Thorum. Take a look at these rings. They have rings made from 4 billion-year-old Gibeon meteorite and genuine 65 million-year-old T-Rex bone. If you are a fan of Vikings, they have Odin ring, the Norse god of war, the Thor ring, and all of them are crafted by hand. Head the link in the comments and use promo code LIVINGHISTORY to get 20% off a truly unique ring.
In the Elizabethan era, cleansing off that makeup was not on the agenda. Hell, even some modern women have been guilty of that a couple of times. So after the maids carefully applied that lead and mercury crap to the Queen's face, Elizabeth kept it on for days. Yeah, you heard me. She let that toxic mess seep into her goddamn skin. Her face turned gray and wrinkled, and she finally decided it was time to remove the layers of poison. And what did she use? Historians suggest it was a nasty concoction of eggshells, alum, and more goddamn mercury. Some claimed it made their skin soft, but that shit was literally peeling off their flesh, layer by goddamn layer. Now let's rewind a bit to Elizabeth's younger years. As a teenager, she didn't go all out with the lead face, not just because she was a goddamn child, but because she hadn't caught smallpox yet. But in 1562, it struck her like a freight train. Fever, scars, and all the goddamn misery. Courtiers were worried sick, thinking she'd bite the dust within a week. But hey, the young royal proved them wrong. She survived, but not without the scars. Oh no, those smallpox scars haunted her well into her miserable 20s. And you know what? Scars weren't something she could just brush off. They were a goddamn problem, especially for a female ruler like her. Elizabeth knew all eyes were on her, judging every inch of her goddamn face. Scars would mark her not as a survivor, but as a goddamn outcast. So what did she do? She banned unflattering portraits of herself. Those artists had to get real creative, my friends. They had to make her look young, flawless, and white as a damn sheet, even as she aged and her skin paid the price for decades of lead abuse. And that brings us to the famous Darnley portrait, painted in 1575. That shit became the holy grail for all future paintings of Elizabeth. Artists reused that depiction of her face for goddamn decades. She fought a relentless battle against time, folks. One of her clever tricks was wearing a wig. Who the hell knows what crazy shit they used back then to hide those gray hairs? For a long time, it was like Shatner's toupee, a well-kept secret. But in 1599, the Earl of Essex spilled the beans and let the world know about Elizabeth's mostly bald head with just a thin ring of hair clinging on for dear life. Thanks a lot, Earl. Can't unsee that shit now. Now let's talk about the end game. In the last months of her godforsaken life, Elizabeth refused to let doctors examine her. She was deep in the dumps, a goddamn melancholy mess. But she refused to rest. She believed that if she laid down, she'd never get the hell back up. So for 15 goddamn hours straight, she stood there like a stubborn queen with her loyal lady spreading pillows around her just in case she collapsed. And on that fateful day, March 24th, 1603, Elizabeth breathed her last. They say it might have been cancer or pneumonia that did her in, but you know what? After a lifetime of lead and mercury poisoning, her body was a goddamn toxic wasteland. One of her ladies-in-waiting claimed that Elizabeth's body even burst in her coffin, releasing all those noxious vapors. Now, some people dismiss it as Jesuit propaganda, but hey, exploding coffins aren't unheard of even today. It's called exploding casket syndrome, and it's what happens when you seal a goddamn decomposing body too tightly. The coffin turns into a goddamn pressure cooker, and shit goes boom. Yeah, bad religion is what they chalked it up to. And here's the kicker. While Elizabeth definitely suffered the consequences of lead and mercury poisoning, her actual cause of death might have been blood poisoning. Just a week before she croaked in 1603, her doctors recommended removing her coronation ring. That damn thing had been cutting into her poisoned flesh for 45 goddamn years. And you know what? It kept on cutting until the very end. Those doctors warned her it had to be surgically removed, but she held on. And a week later, she dropped dead. Maybe exploded, depending on who the hell you ask. Using lead for makeup goes way back, my friends. People have been doing that shit since at least the 5th century BCE. In the Roman Empire, women powdered their goddamn faces with lead. And by the 16th century, they had a fancy name for it. Venetian ceruse, or the goddamn spirits of Saturn. Elizabeth's favorite cosmetic. But guess what? It wasn't officially classified as a poison until 1634, less than 40 years after her goddamn death. And you know what? It had a hand, or maybe both, in taking her down. They knew that shit caused hair loss and skin damage, but it took them a goddamn long time to figure out they were killing themselves in the name of beauty. And you know what's even crazier? We're still doing it today. Yeah, pain and death for beauty is an old goddamn tradition, and it's not done with us yet. So, what do you think of Queen Elizabeth's goddamn makeup tutorial? Let us know in the comments. And while you're at it, check out some of these other messed up videos from our living history collection. Don't say we didn't warn you.